You made it. Come, join me by the fire. Let's get you all cozy. It's snowing so much outside. I was scared you got lost in the snow. I hope it wasn't too much of a hassle for you to come here this evening. Oh, what am I up to? I'm just reading an old favorite book of mine. It's called The Fir Tree. How would you feel if I read it aloud? Then we can both enjoy it together. Wonderful. Let me just turn back the pages. And we'll start at the very beginning. The Fir Tree. Out in the woods stood such a pretty little fir tree. It grew in a good place where it had plenty of sun and plenty of fresh air. Around it stood many tall comrades, both fir trees and pines. The little fir tree was in a headlong hurry to grow up. It didn't care a thing for the warm sunshine or for the fresh air, and it took no interest in the peasant children who ran about chattering when they came to pick strawberries or raspberries. Often, when the children had picked their pails full, or had gathered long strings of berries threaded on straws, they would sit down and rest near the little fir. "Oh, isn't it a nice little tree?" they would say. "It's the baby of the woods." The little tree didn't like their remarks at all. Next year, it shot up a long joint of new growth, and the following year, another joint, still longer. You can always tell how old a fir tree is by counting the number of joints it has. "I wish I were a grown-up tree, like my comrades," the little tree sighed. "Then I could stretch out my branches and see from my top what the world is like. The birds would make me their nesting place, and when the wind blew, I could blow back and forth with all the great trees." It took no pleasure in the sunshine, nor in the birds. The glowing clouds that sailed overhead at sunrise and sunset meant nothing to it. In winter, when the snow lay sparkling on the ground, a hare would often come hopping along and jump right over the little tree. Oh, how irritating it was. That happened for 2 winters, but when the 3rd winter came, the tree was so tall that the hare had to turn aside and hop around it. Oh, to grow, to get older and taller, the little tree thought. That is the most wonderful thing in this world. In the autumn, woodcutters came and cut down a few of the largest trees. This happened every year. The young fir was no longer a baby tree, and it trembled to see how those stately great trees crashed to the ground, how their limbs were lopped off, and how lean they looked as the naked trunks were loaded into carts. It could hardly recognize the trees it had known when the horses pulled them out of the woods. Where are they going? What could become of them? In the springtime, when swallows and storks came back, the tree asked them, "Do you know where the other trees went? Have you met them?" The swallows knew nothing about it, but the stork looked thoughtful and nodded his head. "Yes, I think I met them," he said. "On my way from Egypt, I met many new ships, and some had tall, stately masts. They may well have been the trees you mean, for I remember the smell of fir. They want it to be remembered to you. Oh, I wish I were old enough to travel on the sea. Please, tell me what it really is and how it looks." "That would take too long to tell," said the stork, and he strode off. "Rejoice in your youth," said the sunbeams. "Take pride in your growing strength and in the stir of life within you." And the wind kissed the tree, and the dew wept over it, for the tree was young and without understanding. When Christmas came near, many young trees were cut down. Some were not even as old or as tall as this fir tree of ours, who was in such a hurry and fret to go traveling. These young trees, which were always the handsomest ones, had their branches left on them when they were loaded on carts and horses drew them out of the woods. Where can they be going? the fir tree wondered. They are no taller than I am. One was really much smaller than I am. And why are they allowed to keep all their branches? Where can they be going? We know, the sparrows chirped. We have been to town and peeped into windows. We know where they are going. The greatest splendor and glory you can imagine awaits them. We peeped through windows. We've seen them planted right in the middle of a warm room and decked out with the most splendid things, gold apples, good gingerbread, gay toys, and many hundreds of candles. And then, asked the fir tree, trembling in every twig, and then, what happens then? We saw nothing more, and never have we seen anything that could match it. I wonder if I was created for such a glorious future, the fir tree rejoiced. Why, that is better than to cross the sea. I am tormented with longing. Oh, if Christmas would only come. I am just as tall and grown up as the trees they chose last year. How I wish I was already in the cart, on my way to a warm room where there is so much splendor and glory. Then something even better, something still more important is bound to happen. Or why would they deck me so fine? Yes, there must be something still grander. But what? Oh, how I long. I don't know what's the matter with me. Enjoy us while you may, the air and sunlight told him. Rejoice in the days of your youth, out here in the open. But the tree did not rejoice at all. It just grew. It grew and was green both winter and summer, dark evergreen. People who passed it said, "There's a beautiful tree." And when Christmas time came again, they cut it down first. The axe struck deep into its marrow. The tree sighed as it fell to the ground. It felt faint with pain. Instead of the happiness it had expected, the tree was sorry to leave the home where it had grown up. It knew that never again it would see its dear old comrades, the little bushes and the flowers about it, and perhaps not even the birds. The departure was anything but pleasant. The tree did not get over it until all the trees were unloaded in the yard, and I heard a man say, "That's a splendid one. That's the tree for us." Then 2 servants came in fine livery and carried the fir tree into a big, splendid drawing room. Portraits were hung all around the walls. On either side of the white porcelain stove stood great Chinese vases with lions on the lids of them. There were easy chairs, silk-covered sofas, and long tables strewn with picture books, and with toys that were worth a mint of money, or so the children said. The fir tree was planted in a large tub filled with sand, but no one could see that it was a tub, because it was wrapped in a gay green cloth and set on a many-colored carpet. How the tree quivered! What would come next? The servants, and even the young ladies, helped it on with its fine decorations. From its branches they hung little nets cut out of colored paper, and each net was filled with candies. Gilded apples and walnuts hung in clusters as if they grew there, and 100 little white, blue, and even red candles were fastened to its twigs. Among its green branches swayed dolls that looked to be real, living people, for the tree had never seen their like before, and up at its very top was set a large gold tinsel star. It was splendid, I tell you, splendid beyond all words. Tonight, they all said, "Ah, tonight, how the tree will shine." Oh, thought the tree, if tonight would only come, if only the candles were lit, and after that, what happens then? Will the trees come trooping out of the woods to see me? Will the sparrows flock to the windows? Shall I take root here and stand in fine ornament all winter and summer long? That was how much it knew about it. All its longing had gone to its bark and set it to arching, which is as bad for a tree as a headache is for us. Now, the candles were lit. What a dazzling splendor! What a blaze of light! The tree quivered so, in every bough, that a candle set one of its twigs ablaze. It hurt terribly, Mercy me, cried every young lady, and the fire was quickly put out. The tree no longer dared rustle a twig. It was awful. Wouldn't it be terrible if it were to drop one of its ornaments? Its own brilliance dazzled it. Suddenly, the folding doors were thrown back, and a whole flock of children burst in as if they would overturn the tree completely. Their elders marched in after them, more sedately. For a moment, but only for a moment, the young ones were stricken speechless. Then they shouted till the rafters rang. They danced about the tree and plucked off one present after another. What are they up to? The tree wondered. What will happen next? As the candles burned down to the bark, they were snuffed out, one by one, and then the children had permission to plunder the tree. They went about it in such earnest that the branches crackled, and if the tree had not been tied to the ceiling by the gold star on top, it would have tumbled headlong. The children danced about with their splendid playthings. No one looked at the tree now, except an old nurse who peered in among the branches. But this was only to make sure that not an apple or a fig had been overlooked. Tell us a story, the children clamored, as they towed a fat little man to the tree. He sat down beneath it and said, Here we are in the woods, and it will do the tree a lot of good to listen to our story. Mind you, I'll tell only one. Which will you have? The story of Ivedy Avedy, or the one about Humpty Dumpty, who tumbled down the stairs, yet ascended the throne and married the princess? Ivedy Avedy, cried some. Humpty Dumpty, cried the others. And there was a great hubbub. Only the fir tree held its peace, though it thought to itself, Am I to be left out of this? Isn't there anything I can do? For the fun of the evening had centered upon it, and it had played its part well. The fat little man told them all about Humpty Dumpty, who tumbled downstairs, yet ascended the throne and married the princess. And the children clapped and shouted, Tell us another one, tell us another one, for they wanted to hear about Ivedy Avedy too. But after Humpty Dumpty, the storyteller stopped. The fir tree stood very still as it pondered how the birds in the woods had never told it a story equal to this. Humpty Dumpty tumbled downstairs, yet he married the princess. Imagine. That must be how things happen in the world. You can never tell. Maybe I'll tumble downstairs and marry a princess too, thought the fir tree, who believed every word of the story because such a nice man had told it. The tree looked forward to the following day, when they would deck it again with fruits and toys, candles and gold. Tomorrow I shall not quiver, it decided. I'll enjoy my splendor to the full. Tomorrow I shall hear about Humpty Dumpty again, and perhaps about Ivedy Avedy too. All night long the tree stood silent as it dreamed its dreams, and the next morning the butler and the maid came with their dusters. Now, my splendor will be renewed, the fir tree thought. But they dragged it upstairs to the garret, and there they left it in a dark corner where no daylight ever came. What's the meaning of this? The tree wondered. What am I going to do here? What story shall I hear? It leaned against the wall, lost in dreams. It had plenty of time for dreaming. As the days and the nights went by, nobody came to the garret, and when at last someone did, it was only to put many big boxes away in the corner. The tree was quite hidden. One might think it had been entirely forgotten. It's still winter outside, thought the tree. The earth is still too hard and covered with snow for them to plant me now. I must have been put here for shelter until springtime comes. How thoughtful of them. How good people they are. Only, I wish it weren't so dark here, and so very, very lonely. There's not even a little hare. It was so friendly out in the woods, when the snow was on the ground and the hare came hopping along. Yes, he was friendly, even when he jumped right over me, though I did not think so then. Here, it's all so terribly lonely. Squeak, squeak, said a little mouse just then. He crept across the floor, and another one followed him. They sniffed the fir tree and rustled in and out among its branches. It's fearfully cold, one of them said. Except for that, it would be very nice here, wouldn't it, you old fir tree? I'm not at all old, said the fir tree. Many trees are much older than I am. Where did you come from? The mice asked him. And what do you know? They were most inquisitive creatures. Tell us about the most beautiful place in the world. Have you been there? Were you ever in the larder, where there are cheeses on shelves and hams that hang from the rafters? It's a place where you can dance upon tallow candles, where you can dart and thin and squeeze out fat. I know nothing of that place, said the tree, but I know the woods where the sun shines and the little birds sing. Then it told them about its youth. The little mice had never heard of a place like that. They listened very intently and said, My, how much you have seen, and how happy it must have made you. The little tree thought about it. Yes, those days were rather amusing. And he went on to tell them about Christmas Eve, when it was decked out with candles and candies. Oh, said the little mice, how lucky you have been, you old fir tree. I am not at all old, it insisted. I came out of the woods just this winter, and I'm really in the prime of my life, though at the moment my growth is suspended. How nicely you tell things, said the mice. The next night they came with 4 other mice to hear what the tree had to say. The more it talked, the more clearly it recalled things, and it thought, those were happy times, but they may still come back. They may come back again. Humpty Dumpty fell downstairs, and yet he married the princess. Maybe the same thing will happen to me. It thought about a charming little birch tree that grew out in the woods. To the fir tree she was a real and lovely princess. Who is Humpty Dumpty? The mice asked it. So the fir tree told them the whole story, for it could remember it word by word. The little mice were ready to jump to the top of the tree for joy. The next night, many more mice came to see the fir tree, and on Sunday 2 rats paid it a call, but they said that the story was not very amusing. Is that the only story you know? The rats asked. Only that one, the tree answered. I heard it on the happiest evening of my life, but I did not know then how happy I was. It's a very silly story. Don't you know one that tells about bacon and candles? Can you tell us a good larder story? No, said the tree. Then goodbye, and we won't be back, said the rats, and they went away. At last, the little mice took staying away too. The tree sighed. Oh, wasn't it pleasant when those gay little mice sat around and listened to all that I had to say? Now that too is past and gone. But will I take good care to enjoy myself once they let me out of here? When would that be? Well, it came to pass on a morning when people came up to clean out the garret. The boxes were moved, the tree was pulled out and thrown hard on the floor. But a servant dragged it at once to the stairway, where there was daylight again. Now my life will start all over, the tree thought. It felt the fresh air and the first sunbeam strike it as it came out into the courtyard. This all happened so quickly, and there was so much going around it, that the tree forgot to even glance at itself. The courtyard adjoined a garden where flowers were blooming. Great masses of fragrant roses hung over the picket fence. The linden trees were in blossom, and between them the swallows skimmed past, calling, cheerily, my loves come back to me. But it was not the fir tree of whom they spoke. Now I shall live again, it rejoiced, and tried to stretch out its branches. Alas, they were withered and brown and brittle. It was tossed into a corner among the weeds and nettles. But the gold star that was still tied to its top sparkled bravely in the sunlight. Several of the merry children who had danced around the tree and taken such pleasure in it at Christmas were playing in the courtyard. One of the youngest seized upon it and tore off the tinsel star. "Look what is still hanging on that ugly old Christmas tree," the child said, and stamped upon the branches until they cracked beneath his shoes. The tree saw the beautiful flowers blooming freshly in the garden. It saw itself and wished that they had left it in the darkest corner of the garret. It thought of its own young days in the deep woods, and of the merry Christmas Eve, and of the little mice who had been so pleased when it told them the story of Humpty Dumpty. "My days are over and past," said the poor tree. "Why didn't I enjoy them while I could? Now they are gone, all gone." A servant came and chopped the tree into little pieces. These heaped together quite high. The wood blazed beautifully under the big copper kettle, and the fir tree moaned so deeply that each groan sounded like a muffled shot. That's why the children who were playing near ran to make circles around the flames, staring into the fire and crying, "Piff-paff." But as each groan burst from it, the tree thought of a bright summer day in the woods, or a starlit winter night. It thought of Christmas Eve, and thought of Humpty Dumpty, which was the only story it ever heard and knew how to tell, and so the tree was burned completely away. The children played on in the courtyard. The youngest child wore on his breast the gold star that had topped the tree on its happiest night of all. But that's no more, and the tree was no more, and there's no more to my story. No more, nothing more. All stories must come to an end. And that is the story of the little fir tree. It's a sad tale, I know, and I didn't mean to make you sad by reading it to you. I just think there's so much beauty in the wisdom of the story. What I love so much about this story is that it reminds us of the importance of being present. It's so easy to live our lives waiting for some future event, some great moment, that we forget to appreciate the life we are living right now. So, I hope you take a look around and find everything that's beautiful in what you already have. Nothing lasts forever, and that's what makes everything so precious. Thank you so much for spending time with me this evening. I appreciate you.